The Galactic Engineering Consortium's most prestigious challenge had never been completed in less than a standard cycle. The quantum molecular reconstruction of a collapsed neutron star's gravitational field required not just advanced mathematics, but intuitive leaps that most species took generations to develop. The Zephyrians held the current record at 8 standard months, a feat that had earned them legendary status among the engineering guilds. Commander Veltar of the Hegemony watched the human through the observation deck's reinforced viewport, mandibles clicking with barely contained skepticism. The creature, Dr. Sarah Chen, according to the dossier, sat hunched over a primitive workstation, her fingers dancing across what appeared to be an archaic input device. No neural interfaces, no quantum processing matrices, no collective consciousness networks, just one human, and her inexplicably crude tools. "This is insulting," muttered Chief Engineer Crixval, her crystalline form pulsing with agitated amber light. "The consortium has spent millennia perfecting this challenge. To suggest that a single member of this juvenile species could accomplish what our greatest minds struggle with is beyond arrogant." Veltar's four eyes tracked the human's movements with predatory focus. The Terrans had been making waves since their recent admission to galactic society, but their claims of problem-solving superiority had yet to be proven. This test would either validate their boasts or serve as a humbling reminder of their place in the cosmic hierarchy. The challenge itself was deceptively simple in concept. Restore stable gravitational fields to a neutron star that had collapsed into a quantum singularity, effectively reversing one of the universe's most catastrophic events. The mathematics alone required processing power that typically demanded entire planet-sized computers working in parallel. The Zephyrians had used a moon-sized quantum matrix. The Ethereals had linked the consciousness of their entire homeworld. The human had arrived with a laptop. Dr. Chen paused in her work, stretching her arms above her head with a series of audible pops that made several alien observers recoil in disgust. She glanced at the chronometer, 3 hours into the challenge, then opened what appeared to be a food container and began consuming what the translator identified as a sandwich. "She's eating," Veltar observed with disbelief. "During the most complex engineering challenge in galactic history, she's eating." "Typical mammalian behavior," Crixval responded dismissively. "Constant fuel consumption, inefficient biological processes. This merely confirms what we already suspected about Terran capabilities." But something nagged at Veltar as he watched the human work. Her approach was unlike anything he'd seen before. Where other species tackled the problem with massive computational arrays and complex theoretical frameworks, Dr. Chen seemed to be playing. She would work intensely for minutes, then pause to doodle strange diagrams. She'd mutter to herself, sometimes laughing at private jokes, then suddenly input rapid sequences of calculations that made no apparent logical sense. The Zephyrian approach had been methodical perfection, every calculation verified through 17 layers of quantum processing. The Ethereals had achieved transcendent mathematical harmony through collective meditation. Dr. Chen appeared to be guessing. "She's treating it like a puzzle," observed Dr. Threnk, the consortium's chief mathematician. His tentacles writhed with confusion. Not a cosmic engineering challenge requiring the peak of scientific achievement, but a puzzle. At the 4-hour mark, Dr. Chen stood up, cracked her knuckles, and began typing with renewed vigor. The monitoring systems showed her calculations accelerating at an impossible rate. The quantum modeling software, designed to handle the computational loads of entire civilizations, began registering processing spikes that shouldn't have been possible from a single terminal. "What is she doing?" Veltar demanded. Dr. Threnk's eyes had gone wide, his natural bioluminescence flickering erratically. She's using approximations. Elegant shortcuts that shouldn't work but somehow do. Look at this. She's treating the quantum matrices as if they were simple differential equations, then applying what she calls intuitive corrections to account for the complexity. That's impossible. The quantum fluctuations alone are being handled through pattern recognition rather than calculation. Threnk interrupted, his voice filled with growing awe. She's not computing every variable. She's recognizing the underlying structures and manipulating them directly. On the display, Dr. Chen's neutron star simulation began to take shape. The gravitational fields, which had resisted the efforts of the galaxy's greatest minds, began to stabilize under her guidance. What should have required planet-spanning computers was being accomplished through what could only be described as informed intuition. "Impossible," Crixval whispered, her crystalline form now pulsing with rapid, confused patterns of light. Dr. Chen paused in her work again, this time to take a long drink from a beverage container labeled coffee. She glanced at the chronometer, seemed satisfied with her progress, and returned to her sandwich. The neutron star continued its reconstruction in the background, following algorithms that somehow anticipated quantum behaviors without explicitly calculating them. At the 5-hour mark, warning alarms began sounding throughout the observation deck. The neutron star simulation had achieved stable reconstruction. The gravitational fields were not just restored, they were optimized beyond the original parameters, creating a stellar configuration more stable than what had existed before the collapse. Dr. Chen saved her work, closed her primitive computer, and knocked on the observation window. When she had their attention, she pointed to her wrist chronometer and made what the cultural database identified as a thumbs-up gesture. Veltar stared at the display showing the completed challenge, then at the human who was now packing her belongings with casual efficiency. "How long did that take?" 4 hours and 47 minutes, Dr. Thrank replied in a stunned whisper. "And the previous record?" 8 standard months. Dr. Chen had finished the galaxy's greatest engineering challenge before lunch. She'd done it alone with primitive tools and had apparently found time to enjoy a meal in the process. As she prepared to leave, she left behind only a simple note on her workstation. "Thanks for the fun puzzle. The trick is remembering that the universe likes elegant solutions. Sometimes the best answer isn't the most complicated one." Sarah P.S. "Has anyone figured out where the good coffee shops are in this sector?" As the human disappeared into the corridor, Veltar realized that the galaxy's understanding of problem-solving was about to undergo a fundamental revision. The Terrans hadn't just joined galactic civilization, they'd apparently been operating on principles that the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to discover. "Commander," Crixval asked quietly, "what do we do now?" Veltar watched the corridor where the human had vanished, his mind racing with the implications. "We learn," he said finally, "and perhaps we find out where she gets her coffee."